Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Let's go. It is free agency time. We are finally here. What we're going to do today is a little free agency primer so you know what to expect tomorrow when free agency officially kicks off. We're hearing a few little rumors right now. We had one move take place with the Miami Heat, but I think so far the NBA's got to be feeling pretty good about how quiet things have been, or relatively quiet anyway, compared to seasons past, right, Keith?
Yeah, I think so. There's no Kemba Walker situation where we, would have found out, timing wise, 5 minutes after the draft ended if it was the same kind of timing. So yeah, so they got to be happy about that. But yeah, things are starting to leak out.
A
I
little
mean,
bit.
it's the reality of some of this stuff is so complex. You, yes, the idea is that things don't start until 6 p.m. on Monday,
Hmm.
6 p.m. Eastern, that
Yes.
is on Monday. But teams want to get moving, they want to get going, so teams are going to start having conversations now, and agents and players and everybody else is kind of doing it. What the NBA doesn't want is super complex things that involve sign and
Right.
trades and multiple teams and multiple players and all this stuff coming out today or tomorrow, because then that gets a little messy for them, because then it's like, all right, we can't say we have tampering rules and then selectively enforce them.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that's something that I think the NBA has got to be, and like you said, some stuff is starting to leak out, and that's inevitable. You have to talk to too many people in order to get anything done in the NBA these days, for nothing to
Yep.
leak out, for everyone to stay completely silent. Things will start getting out. But it hasn't been anything like this is official, this is going to happen, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's been more kind of like, oh, okay, this move might set up for something here, but it's still not set in stone, that type of thing. So I think they've got to be pretty pleased with that. Quick mention, guys, that we've been calling this the summer of the trade for a while. We are anticipating a lot of trades coming up. We already went over a few days ago in our complete draft night review some of the trades that happened on draft night and everything that took place there. I'm calling this our Snyder cut because it's 2 hours long. So if if you want to do a deep dive on the draft, make sure you go check out that video right here on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel, and don't forget, subscribe here as well. Turn on those notifications because we are going to be doing some recaps each night of what happens here in free agency. But Keith, I guess we should start before we get into general free agency. Let's start with kind of the biggest news so far of the day, and that's the Miami Heat picking up the option on Goran Dragic. But I don't know that that's to keep him. It sounded like it might be to move him in a sign and trade potentially for Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, the other thing Miami did was they declined their team option on Andre
Hmm.
Iguodala. And at first glance, you might look at it and say, why would you split those? Why would you not go one way with both of them or go the other way with both of them? And ultimately for Miami, well, what they're doing here is Iguodala at 15 million. That's just too much.
Hmm.
Nobody really wants that kind of salary on their books for him. He doesn't want to be treated just like a contract either. He wants to, I think, go somewhere. So I think them declining his team option makes sense, because now he'll have the free. I'm going to be Golden State. Let's just be realistic here. I just tweeted that feels like the lockiest of locks, that he's going there either on the minimum or for the
Hmm.
tax MLE. He never wanted to leave there anyway. That was all just driven by finances and all that stuff. So yeah. But the Dragic one becomes interesting because Miami, had they declined his team option and basically wiped the books clean of everybody but Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn, they could have been somewhere between 20 and 26 million in cap space. Now, the guy they're hot after, as seems like are a lot of teams, is Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
That's shy because we're already hearing Lowry can get 30 plus million from New Orleans, maybe Dallas.
Yep.
So if that's what he wants, Miami needed to get there. So if you're the Heat, well, 20 to 26 million ain't that. And they didn't have another really kind of logical move to clear and create another 30 million in space. They'd then be down to very few players and a very much of a roster to figure out. Mark Stein just tweeted, the momentum behind an Andre Iguodala return to Golden State is bubbling strong already. I mean,
There's
come on,
there's instant
you know.
confirmation for you, Keith, right
Yeah,
there.
right. Yeah, yay for me, for reading tea leaves that even the dumbest Harry Potter student could have read, um, or not Harry Potter, a Hogwarts student. Sorry, I should get that right. My daughter's gonna kill me now.
I
Um,
think it still counts. We know what you meant.
Yeah, you know what I meant. But if she
Yeah.
heard me say that, she'd be in here, strangling me from behind with my headphone cord. Um,
That's violent.
so look at that. We're not even 2 minutes into the show, and we're already off the rails.
That's okay.
Um, so yeah, so back to the Heat. So now what Miami can do is they can use Dragic's $19.44 million
Hmm.
contract in a sign and trade for Kyle Lowry. Now, alone, that doesn't get you to the Lowry number because that only gets you to about 24 million. But you had Precious Achua to that. You had maybe Tyler Hero if it was absolutely necessary, or you had KZ Okpala. Or the other option could be kind of do the Keith Bogans approach, where you sign and trade along with Dragic somebody like Nemanja Bjelica and
Yeah.
give him 7-8 million in the first year, followed by 2 non-guaranteed years. Basically, hey, here's a bonus to be part of this trade. They can get there. I tweeted if Kyle Lowry wants Miami, Miami wants Kyle Lowry, and Toronto's willing to play ball, this is going to happen. And they can do all of this now without having to give up any of their other free agent rights on anybody. So not Robinson, not Nunn,
Right.
not Victor Oladipo, not even Dwayne Dedman. Like they can hang on to free agent rights. Even Trevor Ariza, all of those guys. So Miami gave themselves some pretty good options by taking this path.
Now, let's say that this happens. Dragic goes to Toronto. Lowry comes to Miami. Are we still looking at this in your mind as a Duncan Robinson or Kendrick Nunn situation, or do you see a scenario where they keep both and then you've got Nunn as your backup?
Yeah. So let's say you bring in Lowry
Yeah.
for, let's just call it 30 million. Let's just try to keep the numbers a little bit round here at the top. So you're probably taking on about 5 extra million in salary beyond that. They've still got a mile under the hard cap to go. I mean, they are really set because this team has almost no salary on their books. The ones that they do have are kind of big, but I know right, we have a lot of Lakers crossover here, and I
Hmm.
know we're going to get a lot of Lakers fans like, then why are the Lakers in such a spot? Well, the Lakers salaries are all bigger than the biggest Miami salary.
Right.
And some of them by a good
A lot.
margin. We're talking 10 plus million, 15 plus million. So that's why they're in a different spot. They're same spot as far as three huge salary players, and then very little behind them. But it's like almost like the Lakers have three hugest salary players, and then Miami has three big salary players. So they'd still have a ton of room underneath the hard cap to fill out their roster, and that becomes important because, like you said, you need to re-sign Duncan Robinson. So that's going to be a deal that is,
He's
let's
getting
say
paid.
17 to 20 million. Yeah,
Yeah.
17 to 20 million. My guess. Joe
Hmm.
Harris plus money, there. Then so you've got to do that. Kendrick Nunn. Let's see what happens with him. They'll need some depth for sure on that team at the point guard spot, but they can also be in play to use the full non-taxpayer mid-level, because again, they've got all this space under the hard cap to play with. So my guess is that could be they fill it with that. So they're going to have, just like the Lakers do, a bunch of depth spots to fill out. They've just got some slightly better tools to fill them out with, which makes it all the difference in the world. It's almost like the Heat are positioning themselves to do multiple things now
Yeah.
versus had they gone the cap space route, it was probably kind of one or two things.
Now let's talk real quick because this when we see things like this happen, okay, the Dragic move, we just kind of put the pieces together and we say, okay, it sounds like they're probably getting louder. And by this point, look, free agency starts tomorrow, but teams already have an idea, right? They already have an idea. Things have been said, right? Stuff has been
Well, that would
communicated.
be tampering,
No,
Trevor, and
I'm
that is
sorry. I'm
not
sorry.
allowed.
My fault. They will not contact him until 6 o'clock tomorrow. You know that's not happening. They
Correct.
have no clue.
Yes.
They just try. But let's walk down
This
this path.
extremely complex stuff will to come together in a matter of minutes.
In
It's
just seconds,
amazing.
they'll call him up and they say, hey Lowry, you in? He says yes. Cool. They
Let's use this as a quick primer here.
yeah,
We probably would have talked it in the free agency
yes.
primer piece, but let's talk here. Neither Trevor nor I gives a crap about tampering.
No,
Does not a
tamper
thing
away.
we care about in the slightest. I get it when if it was Damian Lillard who's under contract for 4 years, that's a little bit of a different story. But free agent tampering at this point in the year, Don't care at all. A matter of 12 hours or whatever by the time you watch this. I don't care at all. Nor do these teams. Nor really does the NBA. Just don't be super blatant and throw it in everybody's face like the Bucks and Kings did.
Exactly, exactly. The tampering rules are in place for a reason, but this time of year, it's almost impossible to put a deal together without. I mean, I guess I'll call it bending the rule. The rules are, I mean, really they're breaking, but still. So we have a pretty good sense then that Miami's got to feel confident that Lowry is joining them. But let's say the answer becomes no. Let's say that Lowry says no. This still isn't a bad move. Because if you're Miami, what's your alternative, right? Are you going to go spend big money on a Spencer Dinwiddie? Are you going to go spend big money on a Dennis Schroeder? Chris Paul's staying where he's at. In those scenarios, if you're going to commit long-term to one of those types of players, I would rather just pay 1 year for Dragic to stick around for another season and maintain your flexibility moving forward. So even in the event that the Lowry thing doesn't work out, I still think this is a smart move for the Miami Heat. Obviously, I think it does pave the way for Lowry to join them. But if that doesn't work, I still think they put themselves in a good situation here by avoiding paying long term and attaching yourselves to a guy like a Dinwiddie or like a Schroeder when I think that they're shooting a bit higher than that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what this is doing. If for some reason this all doesn't come to pass, then it turns into, all right, we gotta figure out some stuff here. So yeah, so they would be in a position to kind of do a lot of different things. You can do
Yes.
Lowry, you can do Lowry and bring in somebody else. You could do that, or if it all falls apart, yeah, like you said, you pivot to the next guy on the list. It's probably not going to be Chris Paul, right? Sounds like
Mm-hmm.
that's really firming up that he'll go back to Phoenix. But point guard is a deep position.
Yep.
What becomes really interesting is, so let's say and I just pulled up our ranking list that
Okay.
we went through on another show. So guys, check those out now too. Though those are all still super valid. There's a couple guys who had unexpected option decisions, but for the most part, go check those out. We did one for each of the 5
Mm-hmm.
positions. So by all means, check those out. So I just pulled it up.
Yeah.
So point guards, our top 3 point guards are Chris Paul, Kyle Lowry, Mike Conley. So Chris Paul stays with the Suns,
Mm-hmm.
is what we're expecting. Conley stays with the Jazz. Again,
Yes.
that's what we're expecting. Kyle Lowry comes off the table here to the Heat. Now, what do you do if you're the Pelicans? Do you then say, well, let's bring Lonzo back? Do you say, let's transition to Spencer Dinwiddie?
Mm-hmm.
Do you say, forget it, let's play the kids? Let's play Kira Lewis and Nikhil Alexander Walker.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it kind of gets really interesting, is taking this guy off the board. If you're Dallas, what's your path now? Are you going for Lonzo? Do you try to make a run at him using your cap space? Are you looking at Spencer Dinwiddie? Do you just say, well, forget it, we've been kind of playing just with Luka as our point guard, and we'll figure it out beside him with somebody else anyway? This is now, I think we've been calling it kind of point guard
Yeah.
dominoes. Mark Stein called it point guard roulette.
Right.
Call it whatever you want. This is the position where it's going to shuffle everything in the league. It'll happen at like center in the wing, but we're talking way, way down in the talent levels. Well, we're not looking at it at the highest level. So that's where it's going to get really fun, really quick. Here is if Lowry's off the board going to Miami. There's still a handful of teams that really need a point guard, and what direction are they going to go with that? That becomes really fun.
And again, that first domino to fall, it's going to be Kyle Lowry. Once
Yeah.
the Lowry decision is in, that's going to open the floodgates. That's where we're going to see a lot of these other moves come through, or at least once teams find out they're eliminated from the Lowry chase. So say it's Dallas. Once they hear, hey, he's not coming here, then you'll see them turn to their plan B. I think until Lowry has made it clear what he's doing, or at least what he is for sure not doing, we're going to be at a little bit of a standstill. I don't think it's going to take long. It's not going to be like Kawhi a few years ago where he took like 4 or 5 days or whatever. I think we'll know pretty quickly what Lowry is doing, and then things will move quickly from there. You mentioned the Pelicans. I do think they're in an interesting spot. Do they eventually bring back Lonzo? We've heard Chicago sounds like the likely landing spot for Lonzo Ball. I think that makes a lot of sense for both sides for that to be worked out. And it's possible the Pelicans just say, look, even though they made a move to clear enough space to bring in Lowry, look, you don't want to force anything. So if that's not there, maybe they do just play the young guys, use your cap space for something else, and move on. I don't think that they need to force a square peg into a round hole here or anything like that.
Yeah, and that and then I mean, funnily enough, they're not connected with any of these guys, but then you got the Knicks
Yeah.
sitting there with
Yeah.
the most cap
What are the
space
Knicks
and a
going to do?
huge need at point guard. Yeah, that's in that. You know what's funny, Trevor? I just had that exact conversation with about 4 or 5 different people this
Yeah.
morning, and every say in that conversation, some person, the exact phrase you just said, "What are the Knicks going to do?" You know, it's just kind of sitting out there. And the other one that keeps getting brought up is, what are the Spurs doing?
Yeah.
Like this is not where they usually live, right? They're not this kind of team. And when they are, it's usually they've got a guy lined up. They're gonna go get him. It's done, and off we go. Like LaMarcus Aldridge was back
Hmm.
in the day, and they do their thing. So yeah, it is. This is where it becomes the teams that have cap space, the guys who are available. It gets really hard to predict because we've got some teams that we just don't have a great feel
Yeah.
for. Normally, if the Lakers have cap space, you connect a couple stars and off you
Right.
go, and it's fairly easy to predict. Used to be with the Knicks, connect the second, third level guys, and off you
Who's
go, and
aging?
there it is. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
The
Yeah,
the
older
aging guy
guys
they
who
shouldn't target. That's
yeah,
that's who they're going to target. But that's not the Knicks
whose
anymore.
contract. Yeah, whose contract we all hate a weekend,
Yes.
and yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's really kind of fun just to look at it and say, man, I don't have a great feel for a lot of this. I mean, as much as Chris Paul, Mike Conley, I think John Collins, Kawhi Leonard, the biggest names we expect are all going to stay
Hmm.
home. But then it gets fun right after that with all the next guys because there's going to be movement within
Right.
that group.
So let's zoom back a little bit. We're going to zoom back and let's talk about just free agency in general,
Yeah.
right? Because I know we've got a lot of people who have asked us for just education bits and pieces and things like that. So for anybody who's maybe new to free agency, hasn't experienced an NBA free agency before, or maybe you just kind of forgot how things actually go, because sometimes what happens is, in all the madness and everything flying all over the place, our brains think that things happen in a certain way, and it turns out that they didn't when you actually look deeply at the situation in terms of how quickly things happen, how things go down. So, what are just some general thoughts on free agency for fans to be aware of as we're watching what we expect to be a pretty busy free agency period unfold?
Yeah, so let's keep an eye on today. There's a handful of player option
Hmm.
decisions and team option decisions to still be made. Most of the qualifying offers to make guys restricted free agents. That's how you keep a player's match rights for any contract that they sign. You make them a qualifying offer. That all has to be done today. By the end of the day, that's going to be done because at midnight the league year changes over.
Right.
For we officially moved to the 2021-22 league year, and then at 6 p.m. Eastern on Monday, that's when the free agent negotiating window opens. So that's when we'll start getting right. Well, Woj probably already has a couple tweets drafted. I'm guessing it's just he's got those timed out to send out right at 6 p.m. and 2 seconds or
Right.
something. So it's ready to go because it's just he's the best, right? So we know. So what's going to happen is those players can enter into an agreement for a contract. So we're going to hear that over and over and over again. Player X
Yes.
has agreed to sign with Team Y. Then a few days later, on August 6th, that's Friday at noontime, transactions can start to go official. So you'll start seeing some signings go official. Some of those trades, the Russell Westbrook trade being the big one that's
Yep.
out there, those will go official on August 6th because what there is there's a moratorium period. The moratorium period is designed around that's the accounting time for both the NBA and the NBA Players Association to look at it and say, all right, we agree on what the numbers were salary wise and
Hmm.
revenue wise and all this. And we agree this is where the salary cap should be set at for the upcoming season. This year it's a little bit different because we kind of already know that. So this is more of a formality than anything else, but it's just how the league works. It's how they've always done it. It's much shorter than it used to be. It used to be like 10 days
Oh,
way back in the
that's right.
day.
I remember that. Oof.
That's when I think they were doing on an abacus and they were sliding, beads
they're,
across.
they're counting fingers,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Oh, hey, take your
Hey,
shoes off. We
everybody's
need
shoes
another,
off.
need the tens, right? I must make you proud as a teacher to even think of such
It
silliness.
absolutely
Um,
does. It absolutely
right.
does.
So but yeah, so now it's shortened down. It's only, really, if you think about it, it's about 3.5 days. So we'll have about 3.5 days of this, and then noon on Friday, all the stuff will start happening. So I'm guessing sometime, and this is all Eastern time. I'm always going to talk it in Eastern time. One, it's where I live. Two, that's how the league looks at it.
Hmm.
So I'm expecting sometime, early morning, you'll probably be wrapping up your breakfast on Friday, and you're going to hear the Los Angeles Lakers have traded for Russell
Yes.
Westbrook, and you'll see all the tweets come out. How you know a deal is official? When the team tweets about
Yep.
it, and they tweet the "Welcome to L.A. Russell Westbrook," or thanks Kyle Kuzma, and all that stuff. When all those things start flowing out, a deal is officially done there. But I know you wanted to talk about. It happens every once in a while.
Yeah.
We hear a deal, and then we don't get that tweet.
So we had, and look, right now we're seeing players post to Instagram, right? We're seeing Kyle Kuzma, Russell Westbrook, like all these guys are posting stuff to Instagram about, excited about the new adventure and things like that. That doesn't mean the deal is official. It's not done. Years ago, we had the infamous and so fun situation with Deandre Jordan, where he agreed to join the Dallas Mavericks and then he changed his mind, and the Clippers came to town, and they were able to persuade him. And there was the chair being put in front of DeAndre Jordan's door, so he couldn't get out, and it made it look like the Clippers were holding him hostage or something and forcing him to stay in LA. Anyway, it was all super dramatic. As I recall, there were even rumors about Mark Cuban driving around Dallas trying to find DeAndre
Yeah,
Jordan,
it
and
was
and all
awesome.
the players were tweeting emojis of like different modes of transport they were using to get to DeAndre Jordan. And it was madness. It was NBA Twitter at its best. I'm not expecting that to happen,
Yeah.
but just be aware.
Paul Pierce was taking pictures of emojis versus just tweeting
That's
emojis.
right. I forgot about that. Oh,
That was great. It was so stupid.
that was
It was
the
so
dumbest thing, but so
it
fun
was all
too.
playing out like super duper late at night
Yeah.
on the East Coast. That was when it was still midnight on the East Coast that free agency opened. So yeah.
So sometimes crazy stuff happens where a player can agree someplace and then have a change of heart. And so you'll hear the
Yeah.
news come out like, hey, this player is going to sign with this team. Player X is going to sign with team Y. And then something changes. But that's very, very rare. Most of the time when the player says, I'm in, the team says, here's your contract, they're not going to go back on that very often. We did have that happen
More
with what? Marcus Morris,
Marcus
wasn't it? With the
Morris.
Spurs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then the Knicks had a player not signed with them, or I don't remember the exact details, but the Knicks were able to
Hmm.
offer him more money, and Marcus Morris backed out of his deal, and that was after the Spurs, if you remember, it agreed to trade Davis
Oh,
Bertans
that's right.
to the Wizards. And the Spurs, came through and stayed with their end of that part of that agreement versus backing out, and that's why a lot of times these things don't fall apart too much because sometimes this creates a transaction chain that it can. We talk about dominoes a lot. You
Mhm.
set off a domino here, and that knocks down 7 or 8 things that were set up because teams, as guys move on, they have other plans for that space or that exception or that trade or whatever. One very common thing that happens
Yeah,
though is you'll hear about a trade. I'm going to use the Lakers Wizards trade as an
sure.
example here, and then you'll hear about it. You'll think, all right, I know what that trade is. We're good.
Mm.
Then what
Yeah.
happens is an hour or two later, you'll get a little bit more details. And then when it actually comes out, sometimes they expand into 3 team trades. Sometimes they expand and added a different player in. So that, I don't know that that'll happen with the Wizards Lakers trade, but because that one will have had a week, a little over a week, um, from the day that went official or from the day it was reported rather to the time it can go official. Don't be surprised if you see deal terms tweaked.
Yes.
That happens all the time with those. We're living it out right now in real time. The Celtics, we already did a whole show where we talked about the Tristan Thompson trade to
Right.
Sacramento with Atlanta and the Kings. That trade is going to happen today. But all sides are trying to tweak it slightly, change the terms a little bit. So that's why sometimes you'll get a report out. That's why even sometimes you'll see Woj or Shams or Haynes or Stein tweet the 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 Portland Trailblazers are trading Damian Lillard to the Mexico City G League team.
Right.
I almost used somebody else, but I didn't want somebody to be like, wait, that's a real
Yeah,
thing.
you get aggregated.
But yeah, right. So yeah, probably not. I'm not that good, but you'll get somebody will say they'll just say that part
Mhm.
first, and then you'll hear they'll fill in details with subsequent tweets or when they write the article up for whatever site it is that they work for, and that's how it all
Mhm.
comes together. So it's just just things to keep in mind. Don't get panicked if you don't see something happen right away and those things. And both Trevor and I know people who run the team Twitter accounts
Yeah.
for teams around the league. Don't tweet at the team Twitter
No.
account being like, "You said you were signing player
No.
X. Why have you not done it yet?" Because really, what you're getting probably is some intern who's going to be like completely overwhelmed, who's been told just you do not respond to anybody, today. So, and I guarantee you, the ones that are kind of the funnier ones, the Trailblazers, the Kings,
Mhm.
the Hawks, I bet you they're going to be putting some tweets out saying we don't know anything, or
Yeah.
some form of funniness here
The
in the
eyeball
next day or
emojis.
so, because that's how it goes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They'll have a little bit of fun with this
In fact,
themselves.
maybe we should do that, Keith. Like, if you and I both just tweeted eyeball emojis, how many people do you think would lose their minds right now?
Too many.
Probably too many.
Yeah, too many.
Um,
Yeah.
and by the way, players do that too sometimes. Players know that they can get
Hmm.
everybody riled up just by
Yeah.
putting out some
Yeah.
emoji because it's just
100%.
kind of funny.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
that reminds me though, like if you're on social media and you're responding to stuff, number one, don't tag players. Never tag
Yeah.
players. Don't respond to
Snitch
players. Don't
tagging is
throw
the
stuff at play.
worst.
I see people, and we saw it a ton with this is my frame of reference, obviously, but Kyle Kuzma, every single time he said anything on social media, all that was getting responded to him was, "You're going to get traded. I hope we trade you." Da, da, da. Don't do that stuff. These guys don't need that. Don't fire off at team accounts or anything like that. If you've got an opinion on something, cool, go ahead, share it, right? But you don't have to throw it in people's faces and tag the players and all of that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
and that's just in general. Don't tag play if it's football, if it's basketball, if it's baseball, whatever. Don't tag players in
Yeah,
your
it's the worst.
opinion takes. Yeah, like if you conducted an
Yeah.
interview with a player, cool, tag that player in
Yeah.
in the interview. But if you're
Yeah.
just saying, "Hey, this guy really sucks," at whatever, don't do that. Don't tag the
Yeah.
player in your
Yeah.
rants. There's no reason for that. But I also want to add in this.
Couple other minor
Oh, no,
sorry,
go ahead.
couple minor pieces of news here real quick.
Perfect.
Chicago Bulls declining their $3 million team option for Ryan
Okay.
Arcidiacono. Not a
Solid
surprise.
pronunciation.
Think we knew that was coming. Yeah, yeah, that's good. It helped that he played in the Final Four a couple
Yeah.
times. The extent of the college basketball I watch, and then Woj adding on. This is going to probably be kind of that. Let's keep adding on to report stuff. A Dragic sign and trade would need to include assets such as draft picks and/or young players to incentivize Raptors involvement. Toronto could decide to keep Dragic or work a buyout to save money and allow him to play elsewhere. Free agency starts Monday at 6. It's all fluid.
Hmm.
So I love that last
Yeah.
sentence there. One thing, because this is already getting asked to me on social media, in case you're wondering, uh, because of Dragic's history with the Heat, they cannot do a sign and trade where they send him away. Raptors waive him and he resigns. Remember, there's a
Correct.
year restriction when you trade a player away, so they would not be able to re-sign him. If the Raptors did in fact buy him out, my guess is if I was Toronto, I'd just keep
Yeah.
him. I think I think that team has a chance to be pretty competitive, and then if it doesn't look great, you can always move him after.
And what do we always say? It's a 1-year contract, so who cares, right? Like the year's not the money. It would be a 1-year deal for him, so no big deal there. That's totally fine. I do want to mention this too. So if you're playing along at home and you're watching everything that's happening, when a move comes out, what I would recommend that you do is hopefully if you're watching this show, you're trying to get a better feel for the way things move in the NBA. Try to predict. Don't just, a lot of times a move comes out and all we do is react, right? We just react to what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great move for this team, bad move for this team. This team won because of this. Think about, remember, these moves don't happen in a vacuum. Think about what it means for the rest of the market and try to predict. For example, like we've been hearing rumors about the dollar amount that Mike Conley might sign for. Then we can say, okay, well, if Mike Conley is getting this much, that might set the dollar amount that we're going to see some of these other guards sign for. And what might that mean for some of the other teams around the NBA? Or, oh man, this team just went and signed a wing player, and we know 5 other teams were probably after that same player. How are they going to pivot there? That's always a fun way to look at things, is how can we predict what's going to happen next, and what is the impact going to be on the overall market? Because remember, nothing in the NBA and free agency happens in a vacuum. There's going to be a ripple effect across the league. Sometimes it's a big one. Sometimes you don't even really notice it. So just keep that in mind as moves come out. Don't just think, hey, is this a good deal for this team, bad deal for this player? What is it? But predict forward. What is this going to mean moving forward for that team? What is it going to mean for other teams around the NBA?
Yep. Yeah, I think too, another thing to kind of keep in mind is, especially if it's a trade, you'll see me tweet this quite often is, all right, this doesn't work. What else is involved? Yeah, well, let's see. And I always want to wait till we have the full picture before we know what it is. I'll react to the initial, like the Westbrook, when it was just the Lakers are going to trade for Westbrook. I think I had a tweet that said something along the lines of, whoa. And then we go from there, right? And then it was, all right, now we're getting more details.
Yes.
We can start to look at this and go through it all. So yeah, so that you got that going on. I would also say too is, I know I'll be tweeting salary cap impacts and all these other things throughout the night. Of course, Bobby Marks is a great guy to follow for that. Eric Pincus as well, who I know Lakers fans are very familiar with because he also covers the team. But yeah, we'll be kind of all over that stuff, tweeting those things. So if it seems like this seems odd, how are they putting this together or whatever, generally one of the 3 of us will have a tweet explaining, what's going on with it. Or you might see this is interesting, which means something bigger is happening there. So yeah, and then come here later in the evening, and Trevor and I will break them all down for you. So what our plan is, do a show, at least one show a day, probably later in the evening, where we break everything down. But if there's something huge, we've already talked, we'll jump on and try to get to it as quick as we can. Maybe even do it live if if we have the ability. But it'll post on YouTube and then to the podcast feed and all those things, because we're going to be all over all of it. Whatever it is, I just told you about Ryan Arcidiacono, and I guarantee a lot of people are like, who's that? So that's the level of detail you're going to get from this show.
That's right. Last thing, I want to finish with this, just to make it clear once again. You can trade a player away in a sign and trade without triggering a hard cap. You cannot bring a player in via sign and trade without triggering the hard cap. Just food for thought. Thanks, everybody.
I'm not even going to add.
Make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. You never know what you're going to find here. We're going to break down all kinds of things going around in the world of the NBA. Sometimes we hear stories about Keith getting chased by alligators. There's always interesting stuff
or my dog,
or your dog makes a cameo appearance
of the live stream.
For sure.
Yep.
For sure. Always some fun stuff going on here. So make sure you do subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell as well. Get notified every time we have a new video coming out,
and like the video.
And yes, don't forget, like the video as well. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.